So you're thinking about moving to Atlanta, Georgia, or maybe Houston, Texas, and you're trying to figure out which one is better for you. And that's really what this video is all about. I'm going to dive into the things like size, population, geography, weather, cost of living, all that. Then maybe some lifestyle stuff to go along with it. Having spent time, a ton of time in Houston and having lived in Atlanta for most of my adult life, I've got a really good perspective and think I can maybe add some value and help you come to your own conclusion, not where I think you should live, but I ultimately want you to live where it's best for you. And so that's what this video is all about. If you have any interest in either one of those cities, you're going to want to stick around for that. We're going to get after it right now. Hey, if this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about eating, sleeping, working, playing, the good and the bad of living in Atlanta, Georgia, well, subscribe below and ring the bell for notification so you can be the first to know about the current market here in Atlanta. My name is Denny and the team and I get calls each and every day from people just like you looking to make the move to Atlanta, and we absolutely love it. So whether you move in next week, next year, or anytime in between, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, even schedule a Zoom. Be happy to help you make a smooth move to Atlanta. As I mentioned in this video, we're going to dive into all things Houston, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, and really try to help you unpack like what's most, what are your priorities, what's most relevant for you and your decision, and help you come to the best conclusion for you. And so with that being said, I'm going to do some data, some lifestyle, my perspective, and I'm going to start with just like the overall population, demographics, growth, things of that nature. And so I actually learned a lot in the process of doing a lot of research here. I've lived in Atlanta for most of my adult life, but I have moved all over the country. I've lived in New York City, Chicago, LA, or really Santa Monica, Los Angeles, and Dallas, Fort Worth. I'm going to do a completely different video on Dallas and Atlanta if you want to check out that. But then in Houston, I have spent a ton of time all through my 20s. I flew to Houston every single month. My wife's family is from Corpus Christi, and so we've spent a lot of time in and around the Houston area for business and pleasure and family and all that stuff. And so I will say this, the best Tex-Mex that I personally have ever found is at Good Company on Kirby in Houston. And every time I land in Houston, I have to go there. And I don't know if we're going to talk about it much, but if there is one thing I can say about Houston, there's a very diverse and great food culture in Houston, and I love the food in Houston. Atlanta's got its own kind of vibe and flavor when it comes to restaurants and food, and they do well, but I'm gonna have to start out and just go ahead, and I wasn't planning on starting there, but let's just give food and restaurants, we'll give Houston the advantage. So back to my notes, I do have some notes to keep me on track. And hopefully, I don't take too long. I want to be as efficient as possible, but I also want to be comprehensive. So let's talk about size. You may not know this, but Houston is huge compared to Atlanta. 640 square miles to be specific, and Atlanta is just 137 square miles. I don't know that that's better or worse. They have similar population density. Houston's is around 3,600 people per mile, and Atlanta is just under 4,000 at 3,900. So that translates into, this is the first thing that's kind of unique. Atlanta has 500,000 people. Now that's the city of Atlanta. Houston has 2.3 million. This is as of the latest census, which was 2020, so not too long ago, but 2.3 million. That's a little bit deceiving, right? Atlanta's just got 500,000, really 532,000 people. Atlanta has 532,000 and Houston has 2.3 million. Well, when we talk about the metro, that's a little bit different. The metro Atlanta has 6.17 million, all of Atlanta, and Houston has 7.25 million. So still a million more people in terms of population in the metro of Houston, but the city of Houston is a lot larger than the city of Atlanta. And so I always think about the metropolitan area. I think most people do when they're thinking about the population size. The city of Atlanta has grown by 24% from 2010 to 2020 census, and Houston just by 10%. That was the city, but the metro Houston grew by 20% and Atlanta by 15. So both of them are growing a lot. They're two of the fastest growing cities and metropolitan areas in the country, but a little bit different. The pace of the city of Atlanta has grown a little bit more, and the pace of the metro Houston has grown a little bit more, but Houston's a lot more spread out. There's one interstate ring around Atlanta, and there's two of them around Houston, probably about to be a third. So that's what you're looking at there. Now, I had some interesting little takeaways about the diversity and the demographics within Atlanta and Houston. Houston has 400,000 illegal immigrants in Houston, which you expect with the proximity to, Mexico and Central and South America. And everyone's always, I'm not trying to get political, but everybody's talking about the Texas border. Well, then you'd expect a higher population there. Atlanta, on the other hand, has a 4.2%, I think it was at 4.2% LGBT community. So a very large gay population or community here in the Atlanta area. And I've always known that, but those were two things when doing a bunch of research that really stood out in some of the things that I read. Now, both cities are extremely diverse in what I would consider a melting pot for their own unique and different reasons. And we'll kind of dive into some of those. The Black population in Houston is right at 23%, whereas Atlanta, and we're talking about the city of Atlanta, not the total metro, is 50%, down from 61%. So that's actually trending down. I didn't realize that, and that was unique. Whereas white in Houston, the white population is 57%, and in Atlanta, it's 41%, up from 31%. And so I know, let me just recap that. Black population in Houston, 23%, in Atlanta now 50%, the white population in Houston, 57%, and in Atlanta, 41%. But here's the thing about white. A lot of the statistics, they include Hispanic or Latino. And so white in Houston, of the 57%, it's actually 24% that's non-Hispanic and 33% is Hispanic. So if I break those out, it's 23% Black, 24% white, and 33% Hispanic in Houston. In Atlanta, it's 50% Black in the city, 41% white. Of that is 38% white and just 3% Hispanic in the city of Atlanta. That was surprisingly low to me. I thought the Hispanic or Latino population here in Atlanta was larger than that. So Atlanta, 50% Black, 38% white, and 3% Hispanic in the city of Atlanta. When you get to the metro, it kind of flip-flops. Although, as you can see, the Black population in Atlanta is shrinking and the white population is growing in the city. And the reverse of it, a lot of the Black population has been moving to the suburbs. And there was this flight back into the city until COVID. And now those things have kind of all been changed upside their head or upside down. Now, obviously, you've probably noticed by now that as I'm going through this, there's not really a winner or a loser. I'm not saying that Atlanta or Houston is better one or the other. I'm trying to empower you to figure out kind of what it is you're looking for, or what would be best for your situation. The annual growth rate in Houston is 1.24% currently and 1.6% in Atlanta. So both of them, again, are growing rapidly, both in the city and in the metro area. And that's really what it kind of looks like. Now I want to get into some of the things that maybe you do really have a preference on. And we're going to start with the weather. In Houston, there's really only one season, maybe two. There's the beginning of summer and the end of summer, right? It's summer and more summer. And I say that jokingly, but there is a winter, but there's definitely not like the four seasons thing going on. It's really hot in Houston, and you get some reprieve during the winter, and then it gets really hot again. Not only is it hot, but it's extremely humid. I actually looked at the average temperatures year round. The lowest monthly average temperature is 54 degrees and the highest is 85. These are the averages now. So sometimes it's a little cooler, sometimes it's a little hotter, but you're talking 54 to 85 degrees most of the year on average throughout the year in Houston. Atlanta has 4 very distinct seasons. You'll have a spring where the flowers are in bloom and everything turns lush and green and pretty. You will have a summer, and it is called Hot Atlanta. It will be hot and it does get humid in the summer. You'll have a distinct, very hot summer, but you'll also have a really cool, crisp, great fall where you can leave the windows open and it's nice outside and college football and all these things are going on. And so you have a great fall season, and then it'll get into winter. Occasionally you'll see some snow, but not that often. And it's never super, super harsh like maybe a Chicago or New York winter, but you'll get all 4 seasons. The average temperature in Atlanta is 43 to 79 degrees. So a lot more even keeled, cool, and manageable than 54 to 85 degrees. So I am going to put that in terms of seasons and weather for my preference over in the Atlanta column. Next, let's talk about outdoors. There's outdoor, that means different things to different people, right? Houston does have an advantage when it comes to the beach. It's at very close proximity to the beach. So you can get down there if that's something that you want to take advantage of. And from Atlanta, you're going to drive at least, I'd say 4-ish hours or more to get to a proper beach or an ocean or something, where you can. It doesn't mean that there aren't places you can put your feet in the water and your butt in the sand, but it's not going to be an ocean unless it's 4 or 5 hours away. But Atlanta does have more forest, more mountains, and more lakes. And so there's plenty of opportunity to get outdoors, get in the water, go skiing, even put your butt in the sand and your feet in the water, but it's probably going to be a lake. But lakes, mountains, forest. You may not know this about Atlanta, but the North Georgia has a lot of mountains. It's very mountainous. So if you want to go hiking, get out in the outdoors, you can do that there. Georgia's got everything from lake life to mountain life to forest and national forest and preserves. Again, for me, I'm going to put that in that check over in the Atlanta category because, we don't mind taking the family on a beach vacation and driving 4 or 5 hours to do that a couple times a year. But on a regular basis, I can ride right down the street, go to the lake, go skiing, go slaloming, sit in the sand, enjoy the lake, go to the mountains, maybe an hour away for us, not even that far really to begin with, but get to a national forest and do all that stuff. So I love Atlanta. Next, we're going to talk about transportation in a couple of different ways. One, the public transportation in Houston is the Metro, METRO. In Atlanta, it's the MARTA, MARTA. And neither of them are amazing. And what I mean by that is that you're still going to need a car. It's probably possible, but not probable, that you can live in Atlanta or Houston, live, work, play, and do everything using just public transportation. You can reduce your commute. You can maybe drive to public transportation entrance or I don't know. Y'all, making these videos, I swear sometimes my brain doesn't work, but you can probably go to a stop and park there and use public transportation to avoid some of the commute, but you're not going to be able to avoid it altogether. Now that's both of them, but I will say that Houston's is probably a little bit better. If I had to give a winner, I would give the edge to Houston because Atlanta is really not the place to be if you're trying to use public transportation to get around. Now, where Atlanta does thrive, well, before I do that, let's talk about the traffic. Both of them are horrid. Both of them. Like I've spent a ton of time in Houston traffic, horrid, terrible. There's just not a lot of ways to get around being in those major thoroughfares. In Atlanta, horrid. Like I've learned my way around some of them, but it's not really all that easy. There's opportunities here and there, but for the most part, when it comes to the perimeter, when it comes to the interstates, when it comes to the major arteries, if you have to do those at the wrong time of day, you're going to be sitting in traffic, and it can be bad. Really, when it comes to public transportation and traffic, I'm not going to get there. Flip a coin, right? But Houston has, now we're going to talk about air transportation, Houston has 2 airports, which means that you probably live closer to one, where Atlanta only has 1 airport, and it's on the south side of the city, and most of the suburb growth is on the north side. Unless you live down there, you probably have a longer commute to the airport. Having said that, the Atlanta airport, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, is the busiest airport in the world. Let me rephrase that. The busiest airport in the world, or repeat, not rephrase. I didn't rephrase it, I repeated it. That has some disadvantages. It's super busy. They are pretty good and pretty efficient at processing everyone. And you can take the MARTA, the public transportation, all the way into the airport. And they're really good at getting you around the airport. The upside is that you can get a direct flight to almost anywhere in the world. Rarely do you have to connect. And the airfares are usually pretty competitive, if not more affordable, because you have direct flights to all of these different markets, both domestically and internationally. So when it comes to airports, I'm going to have to give the lead to Atlanta, not because they're more convenient to get to, but the process while you're there is pretty smooth and pretty efficient, and you can just about get anywhere in a direct flight, more affordable than most other markets. But hey, listen, I've flown in and out of Houston all the time, and in both of those airports, and they do a really good job, and no really complaints. I doubt, unless you're a busy traveler, that's going to make up your decision. But that's the airport. Back in the flip a coin category, crime is on the rise in all major metros all around the country. And you might have your own opinions about why that is. But the reality is, regardless, it is on the rise. So, or has been worse in the last couple of years, especially since COVID, and whether it's reduced resources, whether it's more people out of work, whether it's people struggling or mental illness or things that come with all these regulations and lockdowns and things, like people are having difficulty. And I pray for all of our government and all of our cities and all of our police force. I mean, there's been, police are being demonized. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and people are just people. And unfortunately, some people are acting up at the moment, and that's the case in both Houston and Atlanta. But I do think crime is a little bit worse in Atlanta, especially if you're in the inner city. And so if you're moving to the suburbs, I never even notice it. The only reason I hear about it is when I see it online, or I don't ever on my daily life encounter it. But it is something to make note of if you're considering moving into the city. Atlanta's is a little bit worse than Houston's, but crime across the country in major metro areas is on the rise, and we need to do something about it. So I'll get off my soapbox on crime. Income tax in Texas is 0. Income tax in Georgia is probably about 5.75. So I'm going to give that advantage to Houston in the income tax bucket. But property taxes, if you're looking at buying a house in Texas, are almost double what they are in Georgia. They're about almost 2% in most markets around Texas, and 1 in some places less than 1% in Georgia. So to put that in perspective, from property taxes, if you make $100,000 a year, 5% is going to cost you, 5.75% is going to cost you $5,000 to $6,000 a year. If you buy a $500,000 or $600,000 house, 1% is going to cost you $5,000 or $6,000. 2% is going to cost you 10 to 12. So you're going to either pay that $5,000 or $6,000 in your home or in your income tax, one or the other, but you're going to pay it. So flip a coin again. If you're renting, maybe go rent in Texas, right? Because then you can avoid property tax and income tax. But the reality is, if you're renting, whoever owns that home is paying property taxes and mortgage, and you're paying that plus a profit on top of that for that investor. And so there's no way around it. You're going to pay it. That's how the government funds the things that they do. But that's how the taxes differ from Georgia to Texas, or Atlanta to Houston. Speaking of cost of living, let's talk about a few other things in terms of cost of living, and then the major driver, which is housing. So the cost of living in Houston, and this was a surprise to me. Cheers. I love coffee. Craft coffee and craft beer, 2 of my favorite things. The cost of living in Houston is supposedly about 12% less than it is in Atlanta, Georgia. And that was a surprise to me. But as I did some more digging, I figured out why. The median home price in Houston is about $305,000, a little bit more than $300,000. The median home price in Atlanta is $395,000, a little bit less than 400. And so about $90,000 difference, about 25% difference between one to the other. And so Houston has more affordable housing. However, that translates into about a $750 a month payment in Houston and about a $2,250 a month payment in Atlanta. So about $500 a month more for the median home in Atlanta versus Houston. But this is what it really boils down to. And here's why I'm going to give Atlanta the advantage on the cost of living. And that's not because of what it's cost, but because of how much you make. In life, you should always look at the net effect, right? Well, the gross or the median household income in Houston is $84,000. The median household income in Atlanta is $106,000. That is a big difference. You're talking about $22,000, almost $2,000 a month. So I think it's probably safe to say that you can spend an extra $500 a month on your home if you make an extra $2,000 a month in income. And so with that, you have to consider all of that. Is your income going to change? Are you looking for a job, opportunity, economy, or all that stuff? You're going to have, a little bit higher paying jobs in Atlanta, at least according to the data, than you are in Houston, but it's going to come at a price. You're going to have 12% higher cost of living, most of which is really in the house itself. What else? Your public schools in Houston, it's particularly in the Woodlands, there are some really, really great public schools. Houston has some great public schools. I don't know as much about the local market and whether that's the city or the suburbs. Obviously, the Woodlands not in the city, or if it's the major metro area in and around Atlanta. The schools in the city are going to be hit or miss, mostly miss. You're probably going to need to go. Decatur has really good public schools, some pockets of maybe Brookhaven, but you're really going to need to go to like North Fulton, Alpharetta, Roswell, even over to Cobb County, Forsyth County. And then it's really the metro area outside of the city of Atlanta where you're going to get the better public school education. So again, I'm back to flipping a coin. I don't think you're going to get the best public school education experience in the inner city of either of those markets. It's really going to be more of a suburb play if you're, have a young family or young kids and that's of interest to you. So, but definitely Cobb County, Forsyth County, North Fulton, and definitely over in Houston and the Woodlands, some great schools there, and some of the other areas around Houston. So greatschools.org is a good resource for that. We talked about, the income, but let's talk about jobs in the economy. Here, Houston has a really great economy and is growing, and there's lots of opportunity for jobs, but unemployment's about the same. But most of the really jobs are in the energy sector in Houston. It's very, very dependent on energy. And when energy's good, Houston's good. When energy's bad, Houston's bad. There are other industries. I'm not saying there's not another job that you can have. Of course, you can be a school teacher or in the service industry, but energy really dominates it. There are a lot of Fortune 500 companies in the Houston area. So it's very headquarter heavy. Atlanta, I would say, is more diverse from an economy and jobs perspective. You're going to get Home Depot, Coca-Cola, UPS, like the North American headquarters for Porsche, for Mercedes-Benz, like that kind of stuff. You're going to get those Fortune 500 headquarters, Anthem. So you're going to get all of those. You're also going to get manufacturing. The Kia plant, Rivian, Rivian, is a new electric vehicle manufacturer. They're opening a plant and hiring 10,000 people in Atlanta right now. But you're also going to get manufacturing, you're going to get tech, you're going to get healthcare, you're going to get biomedical, you're going to get the movie industry. Georgia has become the top, it's taken over LA, Atlanta has, in terms of movie production. So you're going to get movies, am I missing something? IT, engineering, finance. Atlanta's just going to have a huge diversity when it comes to economies and jobs and opportunities. And so if you're looking to change careers, or if you're looking to do something different, or if you're looking to, advance in one of those careers, then Atlanta is definitely going to be one to consider. I personally prefer the diversity of Atlanta versus the energy dependence of Houston. It just smooths out some of those economic booms and busts because something's always something's always available in terms of an opportunity. I almost missed it. I skipped over it. We talked about public schools, but from, public schools on through university into your career, there's probably going to be, a segment of the population that's interested in higher education. And over in Houston, you have really Rice and the University of Houston. If you live in Houston and I'm forgetting one, a really big university or important higher education, drop that in the comments below. But I do know this, Atlanta is loaded. You're talking about the University of Georgia, Georgia State University, Georgia Tech, Morehouse, Spelman, Emory. How did I almost forget Emory? So huge, world-renowned, really great higher education universities here in Georgia, both undergrad and graduate work. So if that's important to you or to your family, then there's a lot of options there, whether you're going to go full-time or even just do it in the evenings or part-time, to improve your education or to get that degree that you've been wanting. And so I almost forgot one of the most important factors in making a decision as to what city you want to live in, and that is sports. I mean, if you're anything like me, listen, if you're not into sports, then you can just fast forward or move on. But I am, and different strokes for different folks. But Atlanta and Houston, when you're talking about sports, let's talk about football, the NFL. Well, you have the Houston Texans. I don't even know if I want to say it. They're the worst. Yes, I'm not talking figuratively, literally the worst. At least according to all the research I did, they're ranked 32 out of 32 teams with no prospect of getting any better. So I was surprised that I'm gonna have to give this one to Atlanta. And Atlanta is not great. And we just traded Matt Ryan away, so who knows? But we're better than the worst. And so I'm gonna have to give NFL to Atlanta, surprisingly, even though it's hard to be a Falcons fan. At least it has been in the last, 2 decades. We've had some painful near misses. No, we missed near wins, but big upset. For what it's worth, that's the NFL. Major League Baseball, on the other hand, I'm going to have to say Houston, they're really good. The best, I think, in the AL West. Did really, really good. They got a really strong team. And then they played the Braves. And the Braves beat them. So considering the Braves are the current world champions, I'm going to have to give that one to Atlanta as well. They just won the World Series from worst to first, had a storybook, crazy, amazing, awesome season. I don't expect them to repeat. Who knows what next year will be like, but the Braves have always been a great franchise. Houston Astros have also been a great baseball franchise, but I'm gonna currently, since we're the world champions, I'm gonna have to give it to the Atlanta Braves. Let's talk basketball for a minute. Back to a sore spot for both teams. Neither one of them are great. Let's just face it, like Atlanta made the playoffs. I don't even know if Houston made the playoffs last year. Atlanta didn't do well once they got into the playoffs. So I think they're around, 11th or 12th, depending on what research you do and whose opinion you're listening to. Whereas Houston was down more in like the 25 to 30, like they're just not great either. But again, Atlanta's ranked slightly ahead of Houston. I'm going to have to give that one to Atlanta. Man, Atlanta is sweeping Houston in football, in baseball, in basketball. Let's talk soccer. Do y'all even know who the team is in Houston? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. I love it because I played for the Data Graphic Dynamo Steamers when I was a kid. Played soccer, and we were orange. And the Houston Dynamo is also orange, but they're also terrible, which my team was not. So I'm going to have to, again, in pro sports, give it to Atlanta. Atlanta United, their second year as a professional team since inception, won the entire league. They struggled for a year or two. Last year was a really good rebuilding year. They finished strong in the playoffs last year. They've started really strong this year, but they have Mercedes-Benz Stadium, world class, state of the art, second to none, brand new stadium. Is like a few years old, setting all kind of records in terms of attendance. There's so much excitement, so much energy, so much fun. You can almost always find me. There's a ton of fan support. And so I'm going to have to give that to Atlanta as well. That means Atlanta takes football, basketball, baseball, soccer. We don't have a hockey team. I don't know if Houston does or not, but if that's important to you, you might want to Google it. And having said all that, I'm going to have to go out on a limb and say that you should move to whatever makes sense for you. Hopefully this provided some value and helped give you some context for that decision. If I missed anything or made any mistakes, I'm sure y'all are going to put it in the comments below, and I always welcome that. We appreciate all of our viewers, all the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe below, ring the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know when we release new great videos like this one. And until I see you in person, hopefully we'll see you on the next episode, or you can always call, text, email, schedule a Zoom, whatever's most comfortable for you. Be happy to help you make a smooth move to Atlanta.